Hello, everyone. This is Troy Parkins. I am the marketing director for Triton Leadership Coaching, and I have an amazing guest with me today. He is an author, a business and individual coach and trainer. Wow, I mean, your bio is incredible. A runner, a skier, a graduate of Yale and Harvard Business School. You were in the Peace Corps. And what I find super fascinating, a world championship competitive rower. I'm talking about the modern Renaissance man, Mr. Landon Carter. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Troy. I'm really pleased to be here and to just share with people whatever I can, and to hopefully that at some point I'll be able to contribute to some of the people that are listening to this, and that would give me great pleasure. As you know, I just turned 77 a couple of days ago, and one of the things that you get to at my age is basically what's left. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, yeah. And and certain things I can't do anymore, given my physical abilities that are that's somewhat declining, and so it basically, for me, the pleasure and my focus and orientation is to be able to contribute to others. And I kind of wish that I had someone like me as a mentor to me when I was younger. And I think one of the problems with the Western society is that we don't value wisdom and age. I remember when I was younger that I would almost discount anybody with gray hair. What are they going to tell me? I mean, I know what I'm doing. I went to Yale. I went to Harvard Business School. Yeah. And yet, so many things that I've learned, in a sense, had I been willing to listen and I'd been willing to accept that I didn't know, or explore the realm that I didn't know. And sometimes we used to say in the training business, what you don't know, you don't know. And been open to listening, then I think perhaps, I don't know, but perhaps my life would have been, at least I would have learned the lessons more rapidly.
Mm. So do you think, on that point, yeah. On
and there's no reason, Landon. Yeah. Why shouldn't people take what I've learned and then operate from my shoulders, stand on my shoulders? Why go through the same darn stuff that I went through when there are some answers, in this? And so that's my orientation now, is that, in terms of what I can contribute, how can I contribute more to people? And so anyway, that's by way of introduction, you might say, I guess.
That's kind of cool. You bring up a very good point that, the youth nowadays, it's this okay boomer thing going around. But I remember back like in the 60s, it was like, don't trust anyone over 40. It seems to be an intrinsic thing within, maybe you did mention Western society. It's an intrinsic thing within the youth. I would love to pick your brain on this. This is a fascinating point. So as someone who is tenured, what would you say to such people like us that are tenured? How do we land that message with the youth of today, being that they have this propensity for being rebels?
Yeah, I think that's good, because each generation needs to rebel against the, you might say, the stuckness, or the dysfunctionality, or the that which is inappropriate that was passed down from the previous generation. And you see that in the emancipation of women, so to speak. in the change in my lifetime in terms of how we treat people with color and Native Americans, and all of those prejudices that were so imbibed or so solid when I was growing up. And it was a shock to me, because I grew up in a Minnesota farm community. In a Minnesota farm community, driving a tractor at 8 and driving on the road at 10, and making 60 cents an hour for 10 hours a day, driving a tractor cultivating corn at 10. And I thought, man, this is heaven. I'm a penny a minute. I mean, how good can it get? But it was I grew up in an all white community, and I didn't even know what a Jew was. And yet the prejudices that I ran into when I went to Andover, which was a prep school on the East Coast, were just, shocked to me, quite frankly, shocked me. And I think it kind of gave me the idea, or it started to give me the idea, that there are different realities. And that each of us, as I examined it more later on, that each of us are conditioned by those realities. There are people that, are kids, that teenagers, and they have a prejudice. Where did it come from? They have no experience other than their parents, or somebody said whatever it is, about these other people.
Yeah.
And then after I left Andover, and then Yale and Harvard Business School, and I'd done really well in all of them. I've been captain of the ski team and captain of the rugby team at Harvard Business School, and the top of my class at or in the top 10%, or and anyway, did really well at school, and 3 varsity sports and all that kind of stuff. And after the Peace Corps, I'd gotten to Aspen, Colorado, and I was developing snowmass at Aspen. And my God, I'm a skier. That was the perfect job, developing this wonderful ski area in one of the best places in the world, Aspen, Colorado. And I wasn't happy. And it was like, oh my God, what? I've done everything right. What? Come on. I'm supposed to now just go off into the sunset, the happily ever after. And I had, my wife, who should have stayed my sister, she was the sister of my roommate from Andover. She'd left me, as she should have. I was an arrogant, jerk. And, that was my first failure. And here I was in my perfect job, and I wasn't happy. And I thought, my God, what's going on? And that's when I would say, because I did have a very, very fortunate and blessed life up until that point. A little thises and a little that's, but in comparison to some people's growing up, I was enormously privileged, supportive parents, all of that kind of stuff. But I wasn't happy. So and then I thought, well, my God, maybe. And I thought, if I have more money in the bank, another condominium, I'm married, or I've got another girlfriend, or whatever the hell it is, and it's the same as what I have now, but more of it. Well, if I have more of what I have now, how in the hell am I going to be happy? Because it's the same stuff. So I thought, so it's kind of like I got to top out. And a lot of people have gone through things where they bottom out. They become alcoholics or drug addicts, or, they've done stuff that they deeply regret or whatever. And they kind of wake up in that process, and then start taking control of their life, and start taking, and starting being the one that finally stops making excuses and says, hey, wait a minute, I'm the central character here in this, in this drama. And maybe I have something to do with it. And in which that case, I better do something about it. Well, that's the bottom out. Well, it can also happen on the top out, where you get everything, you have everything, and you're not happy. And you go, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it was in that frame of mind that I went to India and started meditation and yoga and listening to the guru and studying the Eastern philosophies of Hinduism and Buddhism. And I've had through my life, I've still continue to do the meditation, some of the meditations. You know, I've kind of shifted to more of Buddhism, I guess, because of a lot of Vipassana courses that I've done, you know, 40 days or more of sitting without talking to anybody and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That are very difficult, but also very rewarding. But the point is that I saw that there are other realities. Here I was with this guru who was materializing things and raising somebody from the dead that I talked to. And it's like, whoa, this is not the reality that I grew up with, you know, in terms of Newtonian mechanics and, you know, and business and, you know, and everything kind of in a logical sense. There's more going on to life than this. Mm-hmm. And so that allowed me to see, and I've seen it several times, that we, each of us, have a way of seeing the world. And we have, and as a matter of fact, our personality is part of that. It fits into how we see the world. You might say it's our come from. It's where we come from, and our personality fits into the world somehow with excuses or explanations or whatever else is there. It's part of that story that we live within. And most people I think it's the way it is. It's permanent. Well, that's just the way it is. I mean, you know, that's the way I see it. And that's the way, you know, and this is who I am. And, you know, all that stuff. Yeah. And then there's the whole mechanism, of course, of being right about it and defending yourself. And there's a whole bunch to learn about how that worldview and one's personality stays stuck. Mm-hmm. And that's important. You have to learn how that mechanism works to enough of a degree to be able to let it go. And what transformation is about is actually letting go of the way you are, and that creates emptiness and space. And emptiness and space is actually who you are. It's the conscious awareness within which everything is arising, including your personality, including this thing here that's sitting here talking to you. And once you have some sense of that, and then you're able to kind of recreate yourself. And you're able to shift from one way of being to another way of being, to shift from one way, let's say, of being upset, which comes out of the old, somebody, you know, pushed a button and triggered, you know, some old pattern that's part of your conditioning and part of kind of who you show up being. And you're all upset and you're all defending yourself and you're going to get back at them. And then being able to wake up and let that go and shift into a more neutral, more centered, more loving, more understanding. You know, somebody says something and you don't take it personally. You understand that they're really upset or they're really angry or they're really afraid or something like that, that it came out of that aspect of thing. And you can respond to it in an appropriate, more enlightened way.
That's emotional intelligence, my friend, right? I mean, that's it. That's EQ right there.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And so then life becomes a conscious evolution of yourself to become more of who you want to be and who you know deep within yourself somehow, and I don't even know how that is, but you know that you could be better and life could be better. Kind of like that. It's kind of like when I was returned from the Peace Corps, it was the late 60s. And it's 1969, and the flower children were there, and everybody was smoking dope, and peace, and and all that stuff. But I mean, there was a vision of utopia, of sharing and love, and and getting off of this high horse kind of arrogance, and all that kind of stuff. And the problem is that everybody that had that vision, which I think is a real vision that all of us have deep down, almost everything that promotes what we should do, including communism as an example, is, hey, we could have a utopia here if we just went along with this way of being. So we all have that, I think. It's just how to get there. And of course, for those of us in my generation, we didn't have the skills. We didn't have the wherewithal. We didn't have the power. Power, by the way, for me, is the ability to create reality. So we did not have the power to take the vision and bring it into manifestation. So, that's a background piece, you might say, because I think that once you start to see yourself in action, once you start to understand that I am an evolving being, or potentially an evolving being, if I can take charge of my evolution, that I'm in a sense taking a dream and manifesting it into reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's the process. I think that's what this whole trip on the earth is about. And that's where young people, going back to that aspect, see, that's where young people could learn from me, from others. And one of the things that's unfortunate is I don't know anything about the new technology. I'm barely keeping up. You see,
hey, you're on Zoom, Landon. You're doing great.
I know I'm on Zoom. Thank you very much for telling me what to do. But the point is, it's easy to discount me. If your value system is, well, he doesn't understand the technology. He's not with it, you see, in terms of what's currently happening. Well, that's always the case if you look historically. There's always the young generation that's, got the new music and got the new this and got the, et cetera. And it's easy to discount the old because in a sense you're rebelling against it. But there are certain things that are immutable. There are certain things that are forever, that are always, always, always the case. And that's the underlying sense of being and the underlying sense of how we are creating this reality that we live in.
Sure.
And kind of even the understanding of how we put ourselves together. Now, of course, that's changed a little bit as people learn more about the brain and they learn more about this and that. But when you go back historically, you see the same things happening over and over and over again. So the people had the same motivation, even though they may have been Victorian England and they were very constrained and they didn't show their emotions and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. But they had them. So as I said, it's easy to discount. If I start getting on, if I'm a little crippled over and I'm with a cane, it's easy to discount me. Got gray hair. I can't hear. What did you say? I can't hear. You see, so there's all those things where it's easy to just discount the person, rather than saying, wait a minute, there's something here that they know that I haven't quite. I may understand it, but I haven't entrained it into myself. I'm not living it. And maybe that's where somebody like myself can be of assistance is in that. And there's no sense, oh my God, I remember a time in my relationships when for 3 days, I was in a fetal position crying, because my wife justifiably was saying, we've got to separate. This isn't working. I'm, blah, blah, blah. And, I was just hopeless. And maybe I needed to go through that. I'm sure I did. And again, I learned a lot in that process. But it'd be nice if I'd had somebody that says, okay, take a look at yourself, see what you've created, et cetera, so that I can move through that, the sadness into the more understanding, into the more responsibility for what it is that I'd created, and understanding how my wife, how I actually created her leaving me.
Yeah.
As she should have. I understand it. So like that.
And Landon, what I'm also hearing is, and I believe this is something that with the younger generation, and I know I have a Gen Z child, okay, and I actually sat him down and said, okay, what's this whole thing with okay boomer, right? and really, it's this whole idea that the younger generation feels the older generation is like talking down to them or telling them what to do. What I'm hearing from you, though, is when you talk about mentorship or you talk about quote unquote coaching or however you want to say it, it's not really you telling people what to do. However, you opening them up to the possibilities, or you saying, look within yourself, or, that they get to realize that themselves. And I know, you were an S trainer for a number of years. You trained over, 50,000, 100,000 people. Share with us a bit about that. I know you're working with Triton with our own trainer and coach program on how to really create an army of trainers and coaches out there that come from this place of, I'm not going to tell you how it's done, but I'm going to work with you. I'm going to mentor you. I'm going to coach you. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. I think some of a lot of people, let me just do a little contextual thing here for a second. A lot of people operate at the wrong level. So let's say I'm coaching somebody and they're upset with somebody, and the other person's upset with them, because always both people are upset, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So then you come up with some compromise solution as a coach. Oh, that's a good idea. So then the person writes it down, and then they go out and try to practice it. But the problem is that they've been operating at the wrong level. They're not looking to see how they're creating what it is that they're upset about, what it is that they're, because most people get upset, or they get annoyed, or they get whatever, and they try to change reality so that they're no longer upset.
Yeah.
That's operating at the wrong level.
Yeah.
It won't work. It never does. Maybe you stop doing this, but then you end up exhibiting it or manifesting it in some other area. You've stopped drinking, and now you become a sugar addict, or I don't know, whatever. That one just came to mind. So my coaching and mentorship is really to have people wake up to themselves, to see themselves in action. And that takes a little bit of practice. It's like going to the gym a bit. So, if you could say, well, most of the time we look at the world from our eyes out, and we deal with things out here in the world as if, okay, I got to deal with all this stuff out here. Suppose your locus, the place from which you look at the world is about a foot behind your head. So now you include this thing here, called the Landon Carter personality in this case, as part of what it is you're looking at. And you see, well, what are you doing? What are you thinking? What's your attitude? What are your actions and non-actions? You see that are creating this thing that's occurring out here that you say you don't like, that you say you want to change. You want just have it be with the way it is, and you want to create a new way of it showing up, a new vision, a new, for a reality.
Sure.
So how are you creating what's currently occupying that space? And if you don't get that, forget it. So all of my coaching is basically from that point of view. You're creating your reality. You're totally powerful. I don't need to give you some power. You're already a God creating the reality that you're living in. Now, you don't like it, and a lot of it is done unconsciously. So maybe in our coaching, because I'm neutral. You're upset. You're trying to do this thing. I'm neutral. Maybe I can help you see yourself in action. And then if you see yourself in action, then we can sit and discuss how you might want to shift from that way of being to a new way of being. And then that, out of a new way of being, you will do things that come from that way of being, and that will produce what you have, the reality that you have will flow from that. Because the only thing you can actually shift in any moment, we're always living in this moment. And you if you're sitting down right now, you can't not sit down right now. You're sitting down right now.
Yeah.
But what you can do is shift the way you're being. You can shift how you're holding it. You can shift how you interpret it. You can shift, and that's instantaneous. You can shift from being a jerk and somebody who is angry and annoyed. It's possible because that came from somewhere else. It didn't come from this current moment. It came from being triggered from some part of your past, your conditioning, etc. You can shift that into being a loving, centered human being just like that. Now, that's what transformation's about, in my interpretation.
Yeah.
But it's a process, because one of the things that happens as soon as you get, whoa, oh my God, I can't believe how wonderful life is. And I'm feeling really, loving and centered. And then your mind will come in and go, like a Pac-Man or something, and, and destroy it. So you have to kind of know how to deal with your own mind, because your mind is not your friend. It can be a tool, and it's got some usefulness, but it is not always your friend. As a matter of fact, mostly I'd say it isn't. It doesn't make you happy. It, matter of fact, takes happiness away. It doesn't make you peaceful and centered. It takes all of that away in its desire for survival, which is its mechanism. There's a whole conversation about all of that. But anyway, that's
right. Yeah. I mean, we're human, so that's always going to be there. And, John says this, I was reading your website, and you also mentioned in some of your blog postings that, this is an ongoing process. And you, who obviously you've implemented the sense of transformation into your life, obviously based on results that I see, you shared in some of your blog posts that, one day I'm feeling grumpy, and, why is that, or what just triggered me, or how it is. And I believe that it's awesome to hear from somebody such as yourself, you've done all this stuff, it, but you can share with us that, hey guys, it's an ongoing process, and it's okay to sometimes, fall into this, untransformed ways of being.
As a matter of fact, the only way you can evolve is by moving from untransformed into transformed. So you have to welcome the upsets, welcome the dysfunctional behavior, so to speak, but not dwell in it and continue to, and make yourself right about it and all those kind of things. You have to be able to see yourself in action, and then you basically is pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. And what happens is you don't get to a place where, I'm finally, back when I was in India, I thought if I could get myself into Padmaasana, which is having your legs like this, which I'm a football player, an American, I mean, I would crank on my knees and legs to try to get myself into this position, because I thought if I could get myself into Padmaasana, then I would obviously have be enlightened. And I would just sit there. And I remember one night where I was in Tecate, Mexico with Indra Devi, learning to be a yoga instructor. And I went up and had a candle, and I sat there in Padmaasana, and I thought, okay, I'm ready, Vishnu, take me. I'm ready. In the morning, they'll just find an empty shell, and I will be enlightened. You see, I'll be America's first saint. Yes, exactly. I'll be America's first saint. And after about an hour and a half, my legs hurt so much, I said, maybe tomorrow. And that was, it never happened. So you don't get to this enlightened state, and then that's it. Even the people that are fortunate enough, which I have never really been. I've had some experiences, but they didn't last very long. And even the people that have it last for months, etc., eventually it goes away. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, at this point, what I experienced happening is you always are going to a deeper level. You remember I said in the beginning that we all exist within a certain mindset of the way the world is, and all of that is we're born into an existing conversation that's already all around us, and it's deep. I mean, it's really deep. For me right now, I'm the product of a white male dominant society. And Diane, my lovely, wonderful angel wife, was the other side of that, a female, but also dominated, so to speak, by male chauvinism. Mm. So what's happening now is what's arising, because there's so much safety and trust and love in our relationship. And we've been working at this for 10 years now. That's what's arising is some of the deeper level anger on her part for being dominated, and surprise on my part for, oh my God, I guess I am this male chauvinist pig that, so it's arising for us to look at and then let go of. And so there's always, there's these levels of things arising, which in the beginning of the relationship, we wouldn't have allowed to arise. They're too threatening, so to speak. Sure. But now it's like, all right, oh, good. What's the next one that's coming up? And it's because the space is there between us and the methodology for how to work through it so that we don't lose the love. As a matter of fact, what happens is we become deeper connected, more in love, more trusting. And that's, that in a sense manifests in wonderful lovemaking. And we could have been annoyed with each other hours before, and we don't hold on to it. We let it go so that we end up in this place where there's no mind. It's just two beings connecting at the most sacred God level that I have ever experienced, and it's the best thing that's ever happened in my whole life. So I would say that in that one area of connection with another human being, I am more connected, more able, etc., than I've ever been. While other things are declining, that has, gotten better and better.
Yeah, and Landon, I think that what you're mentioning now, this could be a potential, its own interview. As a whole. I know you've co-written a book with your wife, Falling in Love Backwards. Yes. Yep. And, there's some remarkable things in there from what I've read. So I would love to hear more. I know we're going to do this again because I'm going to say you've been a fascinating speaker and guest. And we're very proud at Triton to have you, partnering with us on the Trainer Coach Leadership Program. And let's wrap this one up with a zany, well, it's not really a zany question, but I've owned 2 dogs at most in my life, okay, at the same time. 2 dogs. Dogs, D-O-G-S, dogs.
Oh, dogs. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, 2 dogs.
I've
Okay.
owned 2 dogs, simultaneously at one time. And one was a golden retriever, one was a corgi. So they would always be fighting over food. They all had their different personalities, right? So however it was, I found my hands full with those 2 dogs, okay? Now, I read that you, my friend, did the Iditarod dog sled race. It's a 1,100-mile race in Alaska.
Yeah.
You did it. You completed it. I think it was like in 1980 or however it was.
1980.
That was the original course that was like the most difficult of the most difficult. I used to watch it on Wide World of Sports. I likely saw you back then, but didn't know who you were. So congrats on that. Here's my question. How many dogs, first of all, are in the sled? Is it like 20 or so?
Yeah, you can have any number you want. You just have to take care of them all. I think I started with 13.
Okay.
And I ended up with 9.
Okay.
2 of them, there's a funny story about it. I got into Unalakleet, which is on the Yukon River down from Ruby, about 2 days travel down from Ruby. And the guy that had leased me the dogs for the thing had actually stolen them from 2 Athabascan Indians in Unalakleet. And so when I got to that place, he never expected me to get that far. When I got to that place, they came up and they said, "Those are my dogs."
Oh my God, that's a great story.
And they took 2 dogs off my sled.
All right, that's awesome. That's remarkable. This question turned out better than I thought. So then you had 13 dogs. How in the world do you manage taking care of 13 dogs? As in, like, how are they fed? Like, is it just free for all, or what goes on with that?
No. Well, when I started learning, I'd never been in a dog sled before. Basically January 1st, and the race started March 1st. So I had to really get my proverbial shit together to make the thing work. And I interviewed some of the winners from previous races in terms of what would you do and how do you do it and all that stuff. And I was, I had to make I don't know, I can't remember, 15 big burlap bags of dog food and things that then were carried onto the trail and they were spaced along the trail as your caches, and you paid for that, and so you would arrive every day or 2 at the next place, and then pick up your bag, and then they'd have dog food in it, and maybe new gloves for yourself, and flashlight batteries and things like that. But I mean, it was chaos in the beginning. I mean, I had some unbelievable stories of dogs coming around, and one being in heat, and then the male lead dog circle. I'd stop the sleds on a practice run, and the male dog comes around and jumps on the female, and all the other dogs are all around them yapping and screaming, and and I'm tearing my hair out, and it was it was a total disaster. So I had a big learning curve on those 2 months in terms of training the dogs and getting them to listen to me. As when I said G, I wanted the lead dog to go right, and when I said ha, he was supposed to go left, and all that kind of stuff. And then they fight, so you keep them on their gang line, and I would move them away, and then each one has a pan for food, and you'd feed them all. I had a cooker because you had to heat the food up, and then you dish it all out to them, and then you take care of their feet. You have to maybe put booties on or take booties off, and I mean it, you know. And then you're trying to get a little sleep, and I mean, I was so. I remember coming into Ruby, Alaska, and I mean, really early in the morning, at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was hallucinating. I was so tired. And I was, you know, I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing all these lights and, you know, trying to, and, you know, people had said that might happen, and it did. And so I thought, oh, and I'm starting to get cold. I'm down to my core. I'm feeling cold. So I stopped the sled. There's a snow hook that you put in. It's like an anchor that keeps the dogs from running away with the sled. And I put that in, and I went up to the 2 lead dogs, and I lay down in the snow, and I pulled them on top of me and went to sleep. Because it was, you know, and that was enough warmth from them. Of course, as soon as you stop the sled, the other dogs just curl up, you know, right where they are and go to sleep. Yeah, so that's easy for that. And so then, anyway, like that. So that was a kind of, it went from literally a disaster and not knowing anything to being able to complete the race. And that was a major experience, major learning, major experience. Yeah.
Again, that's pretty incredible, my friend.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing, just in terms of vision, I got to a place where one morning I went out and it had been new snow and everything was sparkling, you know, and I'm 50 miles from anybody, you know, basically. I mean, you know, you're by yourself, and I'm 50 miles from anybody, and the dogs are like this, you know, and I'm back on the back of the sled. And I thought, this is what I envisioned happening. This is what I've looked forward to. And I had tears streaming down my face, just at the, here I am, and I'm in the light, so to speak, of the vision of, it was fantastic. I mean, there was, you know, moments up and down all throughout the experience, but that was a very significant moment for me.
That is, as John would say, living life full participation.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Very cool. Well, Mr. Landon, it was a pleasure speaking with you. And
Mine
we'll
too.
do this again. And
Good.
take care and have a good rest of your day, okay?
All right, Troy. All the best, mate.